The fluorescent lights of Sterling Enterprises flickered overhead, casting a sickly glow on everything they touched, including me. My name is David Miller, and I was the cleaner. Not the head of maintenance, not the facilities manager, just the cleaner. The man who emptied trash cans and scrubbed toilets and pretended not to notice the way the executives looked through him like he was made of glass. I had been working at the prestigious company for 18 months, a temporary position that had somehow become permanent, a lifeline I clung to with desperate, white-knuckled hands. My daughter Sophie was 6 years old. She had her mother's smile, a crooked, mischievous thing that could light up the darkest room. Her mother, my wife Alina, had died 3 years ago, a sudden, cruel accident that had stolen her from us in the middle of the night. I had been an engineer then, a man with a promising career and a steady income. But grief had unraveled me. I had lost my job, lost my savings, lost my way. The cleaner position at Sterling Enterprises was the only thing I could find, the only thing that would take a broken man with a spotty employment record and a daughter who needed him to keep going. I worked the night shift from 11 at night to 7 in the morning. It was a lonely existence, a ghost haunting the hallways of power, cleaning up the messes left behind by the people who had everything. I didn't mind the solitude. It gave me time to think, to plan, to dream of a better life for Sophie. But mostly, it gave me time to mourn. The 45th floor was the executive suite, the domain of the company's CEO, Victoria Ashford. She was a legend in the business world, a woman who had built an empire from nothing, a billionaire who had clawed her way to the top through sheer determination and willpower. She was also, according to the gossip I overheard from the secretaries, a complete and utter monster. She fired people for the slightest infraction. She screamed at associates until they cried. She had a reputation for being cold, ruthless, and utterly devoid of empathy. I had never seen her, not really. I caught glimpses of her through the glass walls of her office, a tall figure in an expensive suit, always on the phone, always in motion. She was like a force of nature, something to be avoided at all costs. Tonight was different. Tonight, the 45th floor was eerily quiet. The secretaries had gone home. The associates had left for the night. Even the night security guard was making his rounds on the lower floors. I was alone, pushing my cart down the carpeted hallway, the only sound the squeak of my wheels and the hum of the air conditioning. I stopped outside Victoria Ashford's office. The door was slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling out into the darkened hallway. I hesitated. I was supposed to clean the office, but the rules were clear. Never enter an executive's office without explicit permission. I was about to move on, to come back later, when I heard a sound. A soft, muffled cry. A sound of pain. My heart started pounding. I pushed the door open a few inches, peering inside. The office was vast, a cathedral of power and wealth. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering city skyline. A massive mahogany desk dominated the center of the room, and there in the corner was Victoria Ashford. She was sitting on a small couch, her head in her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. She was a beautiful woman, I realized, with sharp cheekbones and dark, penetrating eyes. But there was a vulnerability there now, a raw, naked pain that I had never seen in her before. I hesitated, unsure of what to do. I was just a cleaner. It wasn't my place to intrude on her private moment. But something inside me, something I couldn't explain, made me step forward. "Mrs. Ashford," I said, my voice soft, "are you okay?" She looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice shaking. "What are you doing here?" I'm the cleaner," I said, my heart hammering against my ribs. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you. I was just cleaning." She wiped her eyes, trying to compose herself. "It's fine," she said, her voice still shaky. "I'm fine, you can go." I nodded, turning to leave. But then something made me stop. I couldn't just walk away. She was clearly in pain, and I couldn't ignore it. "Mrs. Ashford," I said, my voice soft, "I know it's none of my business, but whatever's bothering you, Sometimes it helps to talk to someone, even if it's just a cleaner. She stared at me, her eyes searching mine. And then something shifted in her expression. The walls she had built around herself, the ones that had been there for so long, began to crack. "You're right," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "It's none of your business, but I don't have anyone else to talk to. My husband died 5 years ago. My daughter is away at boarding school. I'm alone. I'm always alone." I felt a pang of sympathy. I knew what it was like to be alone. I knew what it was like to carry a burden that no one else could see. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice soft. "I know what it's like to lose someone. My wife died 3 years ago. I have a daughter too. She's 6. Victoria looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of surprise and curiosity. "You have a daughter?" she asked. "What's her name?" "Sophie," I said, a smile tugging at the corners of my lips. "She's my whole world." Victoria smiled, a small, tentative smile that lit up her face. "That's a beautiful name," she said. "I have a daughter too. Her name is Lily. She's 8. We talked for hours that night, two strangers bound by a shared pain. I told her about Alina, about the accident, about the struggle to raise Sophie on my own. She told me about her husband, about the cancer that had stolen him from her, about the guilt she carried for not being there when he needed her most. As the night wore on, I felt a connection forming, a bond that I hadn't expected. Victoria Ashford was not the monster I had imagined. She was a woman who had been broken by life, just like me. And in that moment, I realized that we were not so different after all. The weeks that followed were strange. Victoria and I, two strangers from opposite sides of the world, began to talk more often. I would find excuses to be on the 45th floor, and she would find excuses to stay late. We would talk for hours, sharing our stories, our fears, our hopes for the future. And slowly I started to see a different side of her. The cold, ruthless exterior had melted away, revealing a woman who was kind, generous, and deeply compassionate. She was also, I realized, incredibly lonely. "You're the only person I can talk to," she said one night, her voice soft. "You're the only person who sees me for who I really am, not the CEO, not the billionaire, just Victoria." I looked at her, this powerful woman who had been brought to her knees by the weight of her past, and I felt a strange sense of kinship. "I feel the same way," I said. "You're the only person who sees me for who I really am, not the cleaner, just David." But there was something else, something I hadn't expected. The more time I spent with Victoria, the more I realized that I was falling in love with her. It was terrifying. I was a single father, a former engineer, a man who had lost everything. She was a billionaire, a CEO, a woman who could have anyone she wanted. Why would she ever want me? But she did. She told me one night, her voice soft and hesitant. "I know this is crazy," she said. "I know this is impossible, but I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop feeling this. It's like you've opened a door in my heart that I thought was sealed forever." I looked at her, this beautiful, broken woman, and I felt my own walls crumbling. "I feel it too," I said. "I've felt it for a long time. I was just too afraid to say anything." "I was too afraid too," she said. "I was afraid of being hurt again. I was afraid of being rejected. But with you, I feel safe. I feel like I can be myself." We kissed, a soft, tentative kiss that turned into something more. A promise, a beginning. The years that followed were the happiest of my life. Victoria and I built a life together, a beautiful, chaotic life filled with love and laughter. Sophie grew up, a happy, healthy teenager who adored both of her mothers. Victoria and I got married, a small, intimate ceremony on a private beach, surrounded by our closest friends. I looked back at the journey that had brought us here, the cleaner who had seen the CEO cry, the billionaire who had hidden her pain, the love that had healed both of us. It had all started with a simple act of kindness, a decision to see beyond the surface, a choice to believe in someone who had been broken by the world. And now I was ready to share our story with the world, A story of love, of healing, of second chances. A story that proved that even the most broken people can find happiness. I smiled, my heart full. I had found my forever, and I was never going to let it go. But life, as I had learned, was never that simple. Just when I thought we had found our happily ever after, the universe threw us another curveball. It was a Tuesday afternoon, 5 years into our marriage. I was in Victoria's office going over some files when my phone rang. It was Sophie's school. My heart seized in my chest. "Mr. Miller," the principal said, her voice strained. "There's been an accident. Sophie fell during recess. She's been taken to the hospital." I dropped the phone, my legs giving out beneath me. Victoria caught me, her arms strong and steady. "What happened?" she asked, her voice urgent. "It's Sophie," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "She's in the hospital." The drive to the hospital was a blur. Victoria drove, her knuckles white on the steering wheel, her jaw clenched. I sat in the passenger seat, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Sophie was my entire world. The thought of losing her, of losing another person I loved, was unbearable. We arrived at the emergency room to find Sophie conscious but pale, her arm in a sling, a gash on her forehead. The doctors said she had fallen from the monkey bars, breaking her arm and suffering a mild concussion. She would be fine, they assured us. She would make a full recovery. But as I looked at my daughter, her eyes filled with tears, I realized how fragile life was, how quickly everything could change. And I realized that I couldn't take anything for granted. Not my happiness, not my love, not my family. That night after Sophie had fallen asleep, Victoria and I sat in the hospital room holding hands. "I was so scared," I said, my voice shaking. "I thought I was going to lose her." "Me too," Victoria said, her voice thick with emotion. "But she's okay. She's going to be okay." I looked at her, this woman who had become my everything. "I love you," I said. "I love you so much." "I love you too," she said, squeezing my hand. "And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you and Sophie are safe and happy. I promise." But promises, even the ones made with the best intentions, can be broken. A few months later, Victoria's past came back to haunt us. Her husband's family, the Ashfords, had been trying to destroy her for years, blaming her for his death, for the secrets she had kept, for the love she had hidden. They had been spreading rumors, planting evidence, building a case against her. They were determined to ruin her, to take everything she had built. I knew I had to do something. I had to help her. But I was just a cleaner, a former engineer. What could I do? And then an idea came to me. I had been investigating the Ashfords for months, using my downtime, my nights, to dig into their past. I talked to people, pieced together clues, followed the money. And I found it. I found the evidence they were trying to hide, the documents they had forged, the trail of lies they had left behind. I brought it all to Victoria, my hands trembling, my heart pounding. "I found it," I said. "I found proof of their scheme. You can use this to stop them." She stared at the documents, her eyes wide with shock. "How did you do this?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "How did you find all of this?" "I was an engineer before I became a cleaner," I said. "I know how to find things that are hidden. I know how to follow the trail." She looked at me, her eyes filled with something I had never seen in them before. Gratitude. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you." The battle was vicious. Victoria took the evidence to the authorities and the Ashfords were arrested, their scheme exposed. It made the news, a scandal that rocked the business world. Victoria was hailed as a hero, a woman who had fought back against corruption and won. But she didn't take the credit. She gave it to me. She told the press that she had been saved by a cleaner, a man who had risked everything to help her. Suddenly, I was famous. My picture was in the newspapers. My name was on everyone's lips. I was no longer invisible. But the biggest secret was yet to be revealed. Victoria had been keeping a secret from me, a secret that would change everything. One night she sat me down, her eyes filled with tears. "David," she said, her voice trembling, "there's something I need to tell you, something I've been hiding for a long time." I looked at her, my heart pounding. "What is it?" I asked. "You can tell me anything." She took a deep breath, her hands shaking. "The reason I hired you," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "it wasn't because you were a good cleaner. It was because I knew who you were. I knew your secret." I stared at her, my mind reeling. "What are you talking about?" I asked. "What secret?" She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and sorrow. "I knew you were the engineer who designed the prototype for the company's most successful product," she said. "I knew you were the man who had been cheated out of his credit. I knew you were the man who had been fired for standing up to my board of directors." I felt the blood drain from my face. "How did you know?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I never told anyone. I was too ashamed." "I found out when I was investigating your background," she said. "I had to know who you were. I had to know why you were so different from everyone else. And when I found out the truth, I was horrified. I had allowed my company to treat you like dirt. I had allowed my board to destroy your career." I sat there, staring at her, my mind racing. I had been carrying this secret for years, the shame of being fired, the humiliation of being forced to work as a cleaner. And now I was finding out that Victoria had known all along. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Why did you keep this from me?" "Because I was ashamed," she said, her voice breaking. "I was ashamed of what my company had done to you. I was ashamed of what I had allowed to happen. And I was afraid that if you knew the truth, you would hate me." I looked at her, this woman who had become my everything, and I felt a wave of conflicting emotions. Anger, hurt, confusion. But beneath it all there was something else. Understanding. "I don't hate you," I said, my voice soft. "I could never hate you. You gave me a second chance. You gave me a life, and I'm grateful." She looked at me, her eyes filled with tears. "You're not angry?" she asked. "You're not upset?" "I'm hurt that you kept this from me," I said. "But I understand why you did it, and I forgive you. I forgive you for everything." She broke down, sobbing into my chest. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice choked. "I'm so sorry for everything. I promise I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you." The years that followed were a journey of healing and rebuilding. Victoria and I worked together to expose the corruption that had destroyed my career, and we succeeded. The board members who had cheated me were fired, and I was offered my old job back. But I turned it down. I had found a new purpose, a new life, a new love. I became a consultant, using my engineering expertise to help struggling companies. I was successful and I was happy. But my greatest joy was my family. Victoria, Sophie, and Lily, the daughter Victoria had given birth to years ago, a daughter she had raised on her own. Lily was 7 years old when I met her, a beautiful, intelligent girl with her mother's eyes and her father's spirit. She called me Dad from the moment we met, and I loved her as if she were my own. We were a family, a beautiful, imperfect, chaotic family, and I was grateful for every moment of it. One day when I was in my 50s, I found myself sitting in the garden, watching the sunset, Victoria by my side. The years had been kind to us, and our love had only deepened with time. "I never thought I would have this," I said, my voice soft. "A family, a life, a love like this." Victoria smiled, her eyes shining with tears. "Neither did I," she said. "But we found it, despite everything, despite all the odds." I took her hand, my heart full. "I love you," I said. "I love you more than I ever thought I could love anyone." "I love you too," she said, squeezing my hand. "Forever and always." I looked at her, this woman who had once been a stranger, who had once been my enemy, and I realized that I was grateful for all of it. Every tear, every fight, every moment of pain, because it had led us here, to this moment, to this love. "It all started with a secret," I said, my voice soft. "A secret I thought I would carry to my grave, but then I found you, and you showed me that secrets don't have to destroy us. They can set us free." Victoria laughed, a soft musical sound. "They can," she said. "They can set us free." We sat there holding hands, watching the sun dip below the horizon. And I knew, with a certainty that burned in my chest, that I had found my forever. I had found my family, I had found my love, I had found my home. And I was never going to let it go.